The palace of Zentha stood tall on the silver hills of planet Zareth. Its towers reached the clouds, and its walls sparkled under the twin suns. Inside that grand palace lived Princess Lyri, the youngest daughter of King Rano. She was small, quiet, and unlike any other royal child. Where others spoke with pride and showed off their psychic powers, Lyri stayed silent. She never laughed, she never played, and most of all, she never bonded. The Zentha people were known across the stars for their deep psychic bonds. Every royal child was expected to form a bond with someone from another world. This bond helped them grow their powers and become strong leaders. Without it, a royal's gift stayed weak and unstable. Lyri was now 11 years old. She had refused more than 20 bond candidates. Some were tall warriors from Grelin. Others were wise thinkers from Nivar. A few were gentle singers from the moon of Alma. All were kind and gifted, but Lyri said no to every one of them. King Rano, her father, was a strong and proud leader. He loved his daughter, but he could not understand her silence. Each day, he grew more worried. Without the bond, Lyri's powers would fade. Her future as princess would be at risk. The court whispered behind his back. Some said she was cursed. Others believed she was broken. But deep inside, Lyri was not broken. She was waiting for something, though she did not know what. One morning, King Rano called a meeting in the royal hall. His voice was firm. His eyes were tired. "I have sent calls across the galaxy," he said, "but no one has touched her heart. Now, I will send one final call to a world we never cared for, a world with no psychic gifts, a place called Earth." The council gasped. Earth was a strange planet. Humans had no special powers. They were weak compared to the psychic races. Many thought they were not worth notice. But the king did not listen to their fear. "Maybe," he said, "we need something different." The message was sent. Weeks passed. Then a reply came. A human was willing to visit. His name was Tom. Tom was not a warrior. He was not rich. He worked in a small garden center. He helped animals and grew plants. He had never left Earth before. But something in the message had touched him. He felt like this journey was meant for him. When Tom arrived at the palace, he was quiet and calm. His eyes were kind, and his hands were rough from work. The guards looked at him with doubt. The nobles shook their heads. He had no fine clothes, no bright tools, and no titles. Still, the king allowed him to meet Lyri. In the throne room, Lyri stood next to her father. She wore a silver dress and a small crown. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of sadness. Tom walked in and bowed. "Hello," he said softly. Lyri said nothing. She turned her head away. Most visitors would have tried to speak more. They would have shown their skills or told stories of their world. Tom did none of that. He just looked at her with respect and stepped back. The silence filled the room like soft music. Lyri's eyes flicked toward him for a moment, then back to the floor. The king watched in silence. After a long moment, he spoke. "You may stay for one moon cycle. If no bond forms, you will return home." Tom nodded. He was given a small room and shown the garden at the back of the palace. It was dry and overgrown. No one had cared for it in years. Tom smiled. He asked for simple tools and seeds. The next morning, he began to work. Every day, Tom went to the garden. He sang soft songs to the plants. He cleaned the ground and planted flowers from earth. He spoke to birds that landed on the walls. He never asked to see Lyri. He never forced his presence, but he felt like she was near, and she was. From her tall window, Lyri watched him. At first, she thought he was foolish. Why talk to birds? Why plant when the soil was poor? But as the days passed, something changed in her. She began to look for him each morning. She waited for his songs. She watched how he helped a hurt bird with a broken wing and how he smiled when the first flower opened. She had seen many powerful beings before. She had seen great gifts and strong minds. But she had never seen kindness so quiet. She had never seen peace that asked for nothing. One afternoon, she stepped into the garden. She wore a simple dress and walked without her guards. Tom looked up, surprised, but said nothing. He just smiled and went back to digging. Leary sat under a tree, far from him. She stayed for an hour, then left. The next day, she returned. She did not speak, and neither did Tom. But something silent was growing between them. Something neither of them could explain. In the royal hall, the nobles whispered again. The princess had walked to the garden. She had stayed there alone with the human. They call it foolish. They call it dangerous. But King Rana watched with quiet hope. He saw what others did not. His tiny daughter, who once looked like a shadow, now had a small light in her eyes. She had taken a step towards something new. She had not bonded yet, but something deeper had begun. Not with power, but with trust. The garden was changing. The soil was soft now. Small flowers opened their petals to the light. Bright green leaves danced with the wind. Birds returned to sing on the branches every day. Tom worked with calm hands and a peaceful heart. He did not rush anything. He did not ask for help. He simply gave care to the garden, and slowly, it came back to life. Princess Leary kept watching him. At first, she stayed in the shadows of the tall trees. She kept her distance. But each day, she came a little closer. She still did not speak to Tom, and he never pushed her. He greeted her with a small nod and continued his work. This made Leary feel safe. Tom was different from all the others. The warriors had spoken with loud voices. The nobles had talked about power and duty. The scientists had shown her strange tools and clever machines. But none of them had looked at her the way Tom did. He looked at her with quiet eyes. No fear, no judgment, no pressure. One morning, Leary walked into the garden holding a basket. Inside were 3 small fruits from the royal kitchen. She placed them on a stone near Tom and sat down. Tom turned to look, smiled softly, and said thank you. He did not ask why she brought them. He simply shared one with her and took a bite of his own. They ate in silence. It became their morning habit. She would bring something from the palace. He would share it with her. No guards followed her now. King Rano had ordered they stay away. He wanted to see what would happen without force. The royal court was full of whispers. Many still believed Tom was wasting her time. A few nobles said the bond would never happen. A foreign visitor with no powers, no title, and no bloodline could not reach the heart of a royal child. But King Rano remembered something his wife once said before she passed. Sometimes the soul does not answer to power. It answers to peace. He began to believe Tom might be the one. Leary still said very little. She listened more than she spoke. But every day she spent in the garden, her steps became lighter. Her eyes became brighter. The cold feeling that surrounded her began to fade. One afternoon, a strange thing happened. Leary reached out and touched a flower Tom had planted from earth. It was small, red, and round like a bell. As she touched it, her fingertips glowed with a soft blue light. She quickly pulled her hand away, looking confused. Tom saw it. He did not speak. He only smiled and picked another flower, placing it in her basket. That night, Leary could not sleep. She sat near her window, thinking about the garden. She thought about the feeling in her chest when she touched the flower. It was warm. Not like fire, but like morning light. She remembered something from her early training. The psychic bond begins not with the mind, but with the heart. She looked up at the stars. For the first time in years, she felt something new. Hope. The next day, Tom brought a small gift. It was a wooden box with carvings of birds and trees. He had made it with his own hands. Inside were seeds from earth and a small picture of his family, a photo of his parents, his sister, and an old dog named Mickey. He showed it to Leary without speaking. She looked at the photo, then at Tom. Her fingers gently touched the box. "Why did you come here?" she asked in a quiet voice. Tom looked at the sky for a moment, then back at her. "Something told me you needed a friend." Leary looked down at the box, then at the garden around them. It was full of life now. The colors were rich. The air was soft and clean. "Do you miss home?" she asked. "Sometimes," Tom said. "But I like it here. The garden is strong. It just needed someone to care for it." Leary knew he was not only talking about the garden. He was talking about her too. She stood up and walked to a small tree near the center. She placed the wooden box under its roots. Then she looked at Tom and gave a small nod. From that moment, something started to grow between them. Not fast like fire, but slow and steady like water under stone. The next few days were quiet, but full of small moments. Leary helped Tom plant more seeds. She showed him the secret paths of the palace grounds. He taught her names of flowers from Earth. She told him names of stars from her world. They spoke of simple things. Not powers, not duty, just life. The bond between them had not fully formed, but something deep had begun. The elders watched from afar. Some were still unsure. But the king smiled when he saw his daughter laugh for the first time in years. The sun began to set behind the silver hills. Leary and Tom sat under the tall tree in the garden. A soft wind passed through the leaves. Leary looked up at Tom. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" Tom asked. "For not asking me to change." She replied. Tom nodded. "You don't need to change. You just need to be who you are." As the stars lit the sky, Leary felt a strange warmth inside her chest. It was gentle. It was real. It was something she had never felt before. It was trust. And that trust was the first step toward something greater. The garden had become a new world inside the palace walls. Birds nested in the trees. Flowers bloomed in rows of soft colors. A small stream now flowed through the middle, where Tom had built a channel using stones in his own hands. The place that was once dry and forgotten was now full of life. Princess Leary visited the garden every day. Sometimes she came in the early morning, before the suns were high. Other times, she came in the evening when the sky turned gold and purple. She never brought guards. She walked in silence, but her steps were lighter now. She no longer hidden the shadows of the trees. She would sit near Tom, sometimes on the bench, sometimes on the grass. They didn't always speak, but the quiet between them was peaceful. It was not the silence of fear or sadness. It was the silence of trust. Tom kept working in the garden. He planted trees from seed pods gifted by the palace and added vines along the walls. When he found broken branches or fallen flowers, he didn't throw them away. He used them to make little nests or simple shapes. Showing Leary how to create beauty from broken things, Leary started doing the same. She collected petals and stones and made patterns in the soil. She smiled when birds landed near her. Her hands, once still and cold, moved with care. Something inside her was growing. Not her powers, but something deeper. Her heart was waking up. One day, Leary brought a small tool from her room. It was a hand-carved stick used by her mother for drawing in the sand. Leary had kept it hidden since her mother's passing. She gave it to Tom without speaking, placing it beside his hand. Tom looked at it and then at Leary. "This is special," he said. Leary nodded. It was hers. Tom did not ask more. He picked up the stick and used it to draw a bird in the soil. Leary watched in silence, her eyes soft. That evening, she returned the tool to her room and placed it on her shelf. No longer hidden in a box. The bond between them was still not complete, but the garden had become their bridge. One afternoon, a visitor arrived at the palace. He was a tall alien from the star system of Belrose. His name was Varn, and he had come with gifts and a request. He wished to form a bond with Princess Leary. He had brought mind crystals and rare stones. He was strong in psychic energy, trained in 5 alien arts. When the nobles saw him, they were pleased. Varn was powerful and respected. They believed Leary would choose him. He asked for a meeting in the throne room, and King Ronno agreed. Leary stood at her father's side as Varn bowed. "Princess," he said, "I offer my strength and my mind to your future. Together, we can shape the stars." Leary did not speak. She looked at Varn, then at the gift in his hand, a crystal that glowed with blue light. He placed it on the floor, expecting her to touch it, but she stepped back. "I already have a friend," she said. The court went quiet. Varn's face changed. He looked confused. "But he is only human," he said. "He has no bond skill. He has no title. What can he give you?" Leary looked up at her father, who gave her a small nod. She spoke clearly. He gave me peace. That is more than power. Tom was not in the room. He had never entered the court. He did not wear rich clothes or ask for praise. He was still in the garden, trimming a branch. The nobles argued. Some said the bond must be formed with someone of high power. Others said it was her right to choose. King Ronald raised his hand to silence them. The choice is hers, he said. Let her heart guide her. Varn bowed again, this time lower, and left without another word. That evening, Leary went to the garden. She found Tom fixing the bench, one of its legs broken from age. I had to speak in court today, she said. Tom looked up and smiled. That sounds hard. It was, Leary said. But I told them the truth. Tom nodded and went back to fixing the bench. He did not ask for details. Lyra sat beside him and looked at the stream. She dipped her fingers in the cool water. As she did, a soft glow moved across her hand. Tom noticed but said nothing. The next morning, something new appeared. In the garden, a vine with silver leaves had grown across one of the walls. No one had planted it. The royal gardeners came to check but could not explain it. Leary touched one of the leaves. A pulse of light ran through her fingers. Tom stood beside her. Is that from you? He asked. Leary nodded slowly. I think so. Her powers had never worked this way before. They had been wild and sharp, hard to control. But now they were soft. Like the garden itself, she was not forcing them. She was simply letting them grow. The Queen's old teacher was called to study Leary's energy. After a day of watching, she gave a report to the king. The bond is beginning, she said. Not through rules, not through force, but through stillness. The garden has become her mirror, and the human is her anchor. King Ronald looked out toward the garden. He had once believed only powerful minds could help his daughter. But now he saw the truth. Sometimes the quietest hearts make the deepest bonds. The garden had become more than a quiet place. It was now a space where feelings grew without fear. It had changed Leary in a way no lesson or training could. It had also changed Tom. Though he did not say it aloud, every morning when he entered the garden and saw Leary waiting for him, he felt something deep inside his chest. Like a soft warmth that never faded, Leary no longer wore her crown when she came to the garden. She wore simple clothes and carried a pouch of seeds. Just like Tom, she had learned how to plant, how to water, and how to care for each flower. Her fingers, once still and cold, now moved gently across the soil. When she touched a leaf, it glowed with a soft light. Her powers were waking up, but unlike before, they no longer burned or caused harm. They flowed gently, like the stream that Tom had made from rocks and rainwater. She was learning to control her gift without force. It was as if the garden understood her, and she understood the garden. One afternoon, a storm rolled over the silver hills. The sky turned dark, and strong winds rushed across the palace grounds. Guards ran to secure doors. Servants pulled down the cloth screens. Thunder cracked across the sky, shaking the windows. Tom looked up from the garden. He had been tying young vines to wooden poles. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then hard. He turned to head inside. But something stopped him. Leary was not in her room. She was in the garden. She stood near the tall tree in the center, her hands raised, her eyes wide. The storm had touched something inside her. Her powers flared. Sparks of light swirled around her arms. The wind lifted her hair, and her eyes glowed with a strange blue shine. The energy around her was strong, but wild. She was not in control. Tom ran toward her, pushing through the rain. The guards shouted for him to stop, but he didn't listen. As he reached her, a wave of light pushed out from her chest and knocked him to the ground. He sat up, wet and sore, but not afraid. Leary looked at him with tears in her eyes. The energy around her flickered. Her voice broke as she spoke. I can't. Stop it. Tom stood up, slowly, carefully. He walked to her, even as the wind pulled at his clothes and the rain hit his face. You're not alone, he said. The light around her sparked again. It's too much, she cried. Tom stepped closer and reached out his hand. You're not too much. You're just learning. Let me help. Leary looked at his hand. It was shaking slightly, but it stayed open. Slowly, she raised her own hand. Her fingers touched his palm. In that moment, the light stopped spinning. The wind slowed. The rain became soft again. A calm filled the garden. Tom felt a strange warmth move from her hand into his own. Not just heat, but something deeper. It was like a memory, a song, and a dream all at once. His heart beat faster, but not from fear, from connection. Leary felt it too. The storm inside her chest became quiet. The light in her eyes faded to a soft glow. Her breathing slowed. Her hand still rested in Tom's. The bond had begun, not from rules, not from orders, but from truth, from care, from trust. Tom looked at her and smiled. "I've got you," he said. She nodded, her voice soft. "And I've got you." The storm passed. The clouds drifted away. The twin suns came out again, lighting the wet garden with golden light. Guards and royal healers rushed into the garden, but stopped when they saw the two standing under the tall tree, hands still joined. Eyes calm. King Ron arrived last. He had seen the light from his chamber window. He had feared the worst, but what he found made his eyes fill with tears. His daughter, who once feared her own gift, now stood without shaking. She was not hiding. She was not silent. She had bonded. The court healers studied her that evening. They said her energy was balanced. Her powers had grown stronger, but they flowed gently now. She could move objects with her mind. She could speak to plants and animals without words. Most of all, she could feel the hearts of others. When asked what changed, she gave a simple answer. "I stopped trying to force it. I just listened." That night, Tom was given a room closer to the royal wing, not because of status, but because the bond had formed, and the princess had asked for him to stay near. The nobles met in private. Some were confused. Some were upset, but none could deny the truth. The human had touched the princess's soul. He had done what no one else could. In the days that followed, the garden grew even more. New flowers bloomed without being planted. Animals from the nearby forest came and stayed. The stream grew wider, and its waters sparkled at night. Leary and Tom sat by the stream often. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they said nothing. But the silence between them was no longer empty. It was full. Tom once said the garden had healed her. Leary replied, "No, you healed me. The garden was just your way of showing me how." As the sun set behind the palace walls, their hands rested together on the grass. The bond was real, and it was only the beginning. News of the bond between Princess Leary and the human boy Tom spread across the stars. Some praised it. They said it was a sign of a new age. Others did not like it. They believed bonding should only happen with powerful races. Many from the royal court stayed silent, but a few noble voices grew louder each day. Among them was Lord Zeron, a high noble from the planet Theras. His son, Browin, had once been considered as a strong match for Leary. When he heard that a simple human had formed a bond with the princess, he was filled with prideful anger. How can a gardener from a low world take the place of a trained soul partner? Zeron said during a court meeting. The king listened calmly. He had expected such words. "The bond is strong," King Rano said. "It formed not by rule, but by truth." Still, Zeron would not stop. He sent a challenge to the palace the next morning. It was from his son Bralen. It was not a challenge of battle. It was a test of spirit, a trial of worth. In the old days, when two bond partners were questioned, a trial could be held, not to hurt each other, but to show their hearts. It was a way to prove strength not through power, but through courage and truth. The trial was peaceful, but hard. King Rano brought the matter to Leary and Tom. "You do not have to accept," he told them, "but if you do, you must be ready. It is a test of mind and heart." Leary looked at Tom. He gave her a small smile. "I will do it," he said. Leary placed her hand on his. "Then I will stand with you." The trial was set for the next sunrise in the Hall of Light. It was a large open room with a glass ceiling and soft white walls. It was not used often, only in moments of great meaning. When the sun rose, the hall was filled. Nobles from every Planet stood along the sides. Brown entered first. He was tall and dressed in silver armor. Even though there would be no fight, his eyes were cold, but his steps were proud. Tom entered with Leary by his side. He wore no armor, just as simple. Closed and calm heart. The elder keeper of bonds stood in the center and raised his hand. "This is not a battle," he said. "It is a trial of light. You will each show your truth. Let your hearts speak." The first part of the trial was called the mirror step. Each person must walk across a path that shows their deepest fears, not to fight them, but to face them. With open eyes, Brown went first. As he walked, images rose around him. They showed his past failures, his training days, his fear of being forgotten. He walked through them with a steady step, but he frowned when others saw them. Tom stepped onto the path next. Images formed around him too. He saw his home on Earth, his sister crying after their mother passed, his dog McKee, growing old. The moment he left Earth, unsure of what he would find, Tom did not hide his tears. He looked at the images and gave a small nod. He did not run. He accepted them as part of himself. The second part of the trial was the circle of choice. Each person was given a question by the elder. It was different for each one. Brown was asked, "If the bond brings peace but removes power, would you still want it?" He stayed quiet for a long time, then said, "Power is needed to protect. Peace?" The elder nodded and turned to Tom. Tom was asked, "If the bond meant giving up your world, would you still hold it?" Tom answered without pause, "I never lost my world. It lives in me, and I would give myself fully to protect what we have now." The final part was the heart fire. Each person had to place their hand in a bowl of light. If their heart was clear, the flame would shine. If their heart was filled with doubt or pride, the light would fade. Brown stepped forward. He placed his hand in the bowl. The light flickered, then held steady. The nobles clapped. He bowed. Tom placed his hand in the second bowl. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the flame rose higher than before. It filled the room with warm golden light. The nobles stopped whispering. Even Lord Zeron looked surprised. The elder keeper raised both hands. "The trial is complete. Both hearts have been tested, but one heart shines without shadow." He pointed to Tom. "The human holds the bond not through strength of skill, but through purity of soul." Brown bowed respectfully and stepped back. He had lost the trial, but he accepted it. Tom stood quietly. He did not smile. He did not raise his hands. He only looked at Leary, and she looked back with eyes full of pride. That evening, the garden was filled with light. A new tree had grown overnight. Its leaves were golden, and its roots formed a circle. The royal gardeners said it was not planted by hand. It came from the bond. They whispered. Liri and Tom sat under the tree. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You did not try to win," she said. "I just told the truth." He replied, "You always do," she said with a smile. The wind moved through the leaves like a soft song. The stars above the palace began to glow, and the night felt quiet and full. The bond had been tested, and it had passed. The golden tree in the center of the garden stood as a sign to all. It had grown without hands, without tools, born from something pure. It became known across the palace as the bond tree. Visitors came just to see it, but the ones who knew its meaning did not speak loudly about it. They understood that true power was not something that shouted. It was something that glowed quietly and touched hearts. Princess Leary changed more each day. Her steps had become stronger. Her voice no longer shook. Her eyes, once cold and distant, now held warmth and light. But the biggest change was in her gift. It had grown beyond anything her teachers had seen. She could move water with a wave of her hand. She could hear the heartbeat of a bird and calm it with just her thoughts. She could speak without words to trees, feel their age and sadness, and bring them joy again. The queen's old teacher, Madame Reina, watched with wide eyes during one of their training sessions. "Your gift is now complete," she said. But it did not come from rules. It came from feeling. Leary nodded. It came from the garden, from the stillness, from Tom. Madame Reina smiled gently. "The bond has opened your soul. and through it, you have found balance. The royal court no longer questioned the bond. Even Lord Saron had grown quiet. The trial had answered every doubt, but now a new challenge was rising, one that no bond trial could prepare for. A shadow was moving across the galaxy, a cold force from the edge of known space. Planets had gone silent, ships had disappeared. A few escape pods had returned, filled with frightened travelers who spoke of dark machines and silent skies. The leaders of nearby worlds came to the palace to meet. They asked for Princess Lyri to join the High Circle. She was no longer just a child of Zentha. She was now a symbol, the youngest royal to form a bond with a human, and the first to show such deep connection with life itself. King Rana called Lyri to the royal chamber. "You have a choice," he said. "You can stay here, safe, or you can go and speak for our people." Lyri looked at Tom, who stood by her side. "I will go," she said. Tom nodded. "Then I go too." The king smiled. "I knew you would." Preparations began at once. A silver ship was prepared for travel. Lyri and Tom would fly to the moon station of Talveris, where leaders of 5-star systems were meeting. Their goal was to unite before the shadow reached their borders. The journey took for days. During that time, Lyri trained her focus. She sat in quiet meditation. She spoke with the animals they passed in space parks. She spent time with Tom, learning more about Earth and his old life. At night, they sat in the viewing room and looked at the stars. Tom pointed out shapes and lines in the sky. Lyri listened and added her own names for the same stars. She called. One whisper light and another heart road. "Everything is different," Tom said one night. "But also the same," Lyri replied. "You name stars to remember. So do we." When the ship landed at Talveris, crowds gathered to welcome them. News of Lyri's bond had already reached this world. Children held flowers, elders bowed, even leaders from distant systems came to greet her. Inside the High Circle Hall, the air was thick with worry. Reports showed that 3 outer colonies had fallen silent. No one knew what the machines wanted. They did not speak. They only moved closer. Some leaders wanted to build more weapons. Others wanted to hide. A few wanted to make deals with the enemy, though no one knew how. Lyri listened to them all. Then she stepped forward. She wore a simple robe, not a crown. She held no staff, only a small flower from the garden back home. She spoke softly. "When I was small, I was silent. I feared my own gift. I feared the noise in my heart. But someone showed me stillness. He taught me that peace does not mean weakness." The hall grew quiet. "We do not need louder weapons. We need stronger hearts. We need each other." She placed the flower on the center table. "This came from a garden that once held nothing but dust. Now it grows light, not because of power, but because of care." Tom stepped beside her. "We are different," he said, "but we are stronger together." Some in the room looked unsure. Others nodded. The leader from planet Navarre stood. "I trust the voice of the princess." The leader from Grelin followed. "We will join." One by one, hands were raised. A new alliance was formed that day, not just with weapons, but with promises. They agreed to share knowledge, protect each other's homes, and build gardens like the one on Zentha in every world of the Alliance. It was called the Circle of Living Light. After the meeting, Lyri and Tom walked through the moon station garden. It was small, but it had space for seeds. Lyri knelt and planted the first one. Tom placed a named stone beside it. The word carved into it was simple: trust. As they stood together under the stars, Lyri held Tom's hand. "You touched my soul," she said. "You helped it bloom." He replied, and the wind carried their words like a promise through the stars. The Circle of Living Light was no longer just a name. It became a true force. Across 5-star systems, people began working together. They shared knowledge. They built new kinds of ships, not only for battle but also for healing and farming. They trained new teams, mixing humans and other species. For the first time, the galaxy started to feel like one home. At the heart of this new unity were Princess Lyri and Tom. Lyri became the youngest speaker in the circle. She did not command with fear. She led with calm words and deep strength. When people were unsure, they looked at her and remembered what stillness could create. Tom became the link between Earth and the wider stars. He taught others about Earth's ways, its stories, and its songs. He also learned from others and helped to build peace between cultures. Some called him the bridge, but the shadow had not stopped. It had only grown slower, watching the galaxy pull together. The machines moved like a black wave. They didn't speak. They didn't stop. And soon, they reached the border of the Navar system. Ships were sent to guard the edge. Leary and Tom joined them on the main defense ship, Hope Star. The ship held hundreds of fighters, engineers, and healers. It moved like a silver whale through space. Lyri stood on the command deck, looking at the wide screen. The enemy ships were dark and cold. They had no flags, no signals, no names. Just a deep hum that echoed across the systems. Tom stood beside her. "We don't know what they want," he said. Leary nodded. "But we know who we are." That night, Leary walked to the meditation room. Inside, she placed her hands on a small tree that had been planted from the garden seed. She closed her eyes and opened her heart. She searched for the sound of the stars, the hum of the universe. She reached out, not with fear, but with the calm she had learned in the garden. Then something happened. A sound answered her, but it was not a voice. It was a feeling, cold, lonely, lost. She opened her eyes in surprise. "They are not only machines," she whispered. "They are trapped." The next morning, she called a meeting. "We cannot win by only fighting," she said. "We must speak, even if they do not answer." Some commanders disagreed, but most trusted her heart. They sent a signal. It was not a message of war. It was music. Tom chose a simple song from Earth, a lullaby, a soft tune that once helped children sleep. Leary added a light pattern that matched the garden's tree glow. They sent it across the stars. At first, there was no answer. Then, the enemy ships paused. They did not move for a whole hour. On the Hope Star, the crew waited. They watched, silent. Suddenly, one of the dark ships blinked, a slow flash. Then another followed, and another. Leary stepped forward. "They heard us." A signal came back, not in words, but in pulses. Slow, steady, like a heartbeat. It was broken, but Leary felt it. "They are old," she said. "Long ago, they were made to serve." But they were left alone, lost without purpose. Tom nodded. They became shadows. Leary reached out again. This time, she sent images of the garden, of children laughing, of the golden tree, of stars shining over peaceful worlds. The machines paused again. Then, one of them turned away. The others followed. They did not fight. They left. The crew cheered. People cried. Some hugged each other without words. For the first time, war had been stopped not by weapons, but by understanding. The news spread across the galaxy. Lyri became a symbol of true strength. But she did not return to a throne. She and Tom chose a different path. They traveled from world to world. They built gardens. They taught stillness. They listened. They healed. Children followed them, some with gifts, some without, all with hearts ready to learn. They called their work the garden path. Years passed. On a quiet world near the edge of the stars, a new tree grew. It stood tall and golden, just like the first. Under it, children sat and listened to an old story. It was the story of a tiny princess who once refused to bond, who feared her gift, who met a human who did not try to change her, who touched her soul with kindness and silence, and together, they brought light back to the stars. A little girl raised her hand. "Is it true?" she asked. An old woman smiled. Her hair was silver now, but her eyes still held the calm fire of the stars. "Yes," Leary said. And beside her, Tom placed a hand on the child's shoulder. It all began in a garden, and so the light continued to grow.